Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 111 of the Peak of Serenity podcast. I am, as always, one of your hosts, emallson, and in Anomoly's seat this week, we have former host, current guest Babylonius,
Hello, everybody.
and Anomaly has some real life stuff going on. He just had a kid, so he's very busy right now. So today we have Babylonius on the show for two reasons. One, so that I'm not talking to myself, and two, well, maybe I'm still talking to myself, but two, um, we don't talk about Windwalkers very much on this show. It's really um, neither me nor Anomaly play it. It's not really on our radar that much.
Yeah.
So we're gonna catch up a little bit on what it is like being a Windwalker right now, which actually I think Babylonius. What are you doing in raid right now?
Well, right now, the past 2 weeks, I've been a boomkin,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I was playing Feral for most of Prague, but with our completely hilarious disaster of, uh, attendance cycling the past couple weeks on Anduin, I've been filling in as a boomkin, which has been a very interesting situation.
Yeah. So you're not also not playing Windwalker right now.
Nope. No, I gave up on Windwalker for this tier. Don't I don't like the way that Windwalker is good at things, or I don't like what Windwalker is good at, I should
You
say.
you don't like being good at exactly one thing and then not having it show up on any end boss.
Yes. I
Yeah.
don't yeah, I think I wrote I mean, anybody who's listening can read, I put a big article on Peak about it, about how I felt that Windwalker is a toxic spec, I believe was the clickbaity title. Yes, it is. Yeah, so I mean, really, just Windwalker is very, very good at AOEing. It is a lot of fun to AOE for those that enjoy it. I just don't do a lot of Mythic Plus. So when it comes to that sort of thing in raids, I just really am not a huge fan of my strength really relying on other people's weakness. The better I do, the worse they do, the worse they do, the better I do, and kind of I felt like doing Soul Render specifically,
Yeah, that was
I
a
was
frustrating
really
one.
I was really, yeah, hoping for people to not play their classes well so that
Well,
I
you're
could
you were
do it
hoping
better.
for them to do all of the single target damage and let you
Right.
do all the AoE, right?
Right, which we did on Prague, which was fine for Prague, but,
Yeah,
the
them
second
farm
Prague was
comes.
over, I mean, my Prague parse was my highest DPS for the rest of farm.
Yeah.
So that is really, I just didn't like that. I didn't like how that felt. So I figured I would give Feral Druid a try. Just being that it really focuses pretty much entirely on single target. And that's kind of, I felt something that I couldn't quite step on other people's toes and other people couldn't step on mine. So
Yeah.
Windwalker is shelved with the full intention of going back to it in Farm and or Dragonflight.
I keep in my head thinking that the title of the, and this is probably just me being kind of out of it today, but I keep thinking that the title of the next expansion is Shadowlands, and that's
I
not
mean,
true.
guess if you're into that sort of thing,
No,
you
Shadowlands
know,
Classic can stay in the future.
have to go back.
Uh, so we're going to talk more about Windwalker, but I also want to mention later in the show we are also going to talk about the loot stuff that they announced for season 4. So we've got some deterministic loot,
Yep.
the much requested vendors. They will have lots of things on them, but we'll get more into that later. But I guess so for this tier, like this tier, the way it's set up, what fights would Windwalker actually be really good at?
So Windwalker is, kind of looking at all of, let me pull up a list of the fights just so I don't
Because it's like a 1 minute burst AoE
Yeah.
spec
So
right now.
Windwalker, is pretty strong at a fight like Vigilant, where there's just kind of a constant stream of
Right.
AoE,
Yep.
but not so much that like everybody needs to be swapping to AoE.
Yeah.
The problem again is that it's kind of an easier fight, so you can really get by with everybody just kind of full AoEing, and then eventually the boss
Right.
dies. Zymox is a pretty decent fight, even though it's really a smaller amount of targets. The fact that you know when it's coming
And
kind
can
of
set up
happens
for
all at
it.
once. Yeah, you really have a couple, have the time, and things, especially on mythic things, will live a little bit longer, so you can really get some of your damage out, as well as if you go to a platform, you have some time to AoE things there. Prototype Pantheon,
Oh
really
yeah.
is
I forgot
a
about that one.
fantastic Windwalker fight.
You just spend the
Um,
whole final phase with 4 target cleave and just go
yeah,
nuts.
I mean, really, you do. And now that we have Unity, and playing Necrolord and having that, that chance to
Yeah.
drop Bone Dust Brew on things, kind of randomly, you can really just go bananas. And especially that when you hit that four targets, at the end, um, it's really, that's a fight that's really very nicely designed for Windwalkers. You can go into it with everything up. You got Zuen, ready to go and just spin your head off. Uh, for till the end of the fight. So that's a really good fight. Um, for Windwalker, in prototype. Windwalker's pretty high up on that.
And then after
Um,
that, I don't think like everything after that, there's like an ad set that
yeah,
you gotta cleave down. But looking at like Live, there's the one big set where you've got the double degen ads
right.
that obviously like Windwalker, you press uh SEF and you go nuts on
Uh,
that. But there's not really any other AoE on that fight.
right. Yeah, it's really like Lahuvim's one that Windwalker is good at, but not great.
Yeah.
And because those ads are a big target for everybody. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
um, really Lahuvim, on the flip side of that, Lahuvim was a fight that I felt really great on as a feral druid, even though my overall damage was garbage.
Yeah.
Like, if you looked at damage done to the Cubby ads, like, I
Yeah.
was annihilating everybody. So
Yeah.
that made me feel really good because that was what I
That's the
wanted to get
important
out of
thing on that
feral.
fight. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was what I wanted to get out of feral. So that felt good, even though on the damage meters, I was low, and then other things like rooting ads and stuff like we had to do. But for a Windwalker, Lahuvim's a fight that's good. Like, it's right there. It's like a step away from being a really spectacular Windwalker fight.
Right.
If the ads were a little more common, or even just when you get that double set, if you got a double set more often, the
More than
timings
one
actually
time.
line up.
Yeah.
Yeah, the timings line up really well for Windwalker, and Windwalker's not going to do very much to the Cubby ads.
Which is a
So,
problem. Yeah.
right, in terms of progression, but in terms of wanting to really maximize what Windwalker's good at, it makes it a little bit easier for you to kind of convince your raid leader, "Hey, I'm going to save my cooldowns and just blast these ads."
Yeah.
Because I'm garbage on the Cubbies no matter what I do.
Yeah.
Halandris is one that Windwalker's damage is very poor, but Windwalker has so much movement that you can stick to things very easily. But if you look at the charts, like,
Yeah.
it's not good for
And before the
Windwalker.
health nerfs, I don't think there would be any reason to ever bring a Windwalker to that fight.
No, I mean, looking at even just the number of parses, Windwalker's got 150 mythic parses. Uh,
There's probably
the
more
only
Brewmaster parses on that fight.
Oh, let's look. But yeah, I mean, even like looking at, Feral, let's see, Brewmaster. Oh yeah, I mean, there's a more than 1,100 Brewmaster parses on
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, even looking at Feral and Survival, obviously historically low played fights or low played classes. And Survival's kind of interesting that it hasn't seen a huge swing of people switching to it because,
It's
Beastmaster and Marksmanship are good enough.
yeah. Yeah.
So the people that wanna play survival are jazzed about it, but the people that don't really
Just
are
play
like,
Marksmanship or just play Beastmaster, both of which are very good right now.
"Sure, yeah." And
Hunter has 3 actually stellar specs right now, which is
and that
meanwhile.
they'll yeah, but they'll still whine about it.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, even like feral and survival, do very well on, Well, survival not as well on Halandris, but feral does fantastic. But they're the only melee classes that have less representation. And like you said, this is kind of when Windwalkers start to lose traction a little bit.
Right,
Um,
because after we get through
Anduin,
this, Anduin's got
right,
the intermission and the down phases, right?
right. Anduin's got the Kingsmorn phases that you can line up a lot of your, a lot of your stuff. You have Ring of Peace, which is really
Oh
fantastic
man, so I'm
to drop it on to drop it on Anduin so things don't get back in.
yep,
That's,
yep.
really the best spell in the game for that mechanic because you can place it over there. As Feral or Boomkin, when I'm in there, I have to angle in the right spot to knock him back with Typhoon
Yeah.
or drop Ursox. Like Windwalker can drop that there, and it's just an area denial for the time that it's up.
It is a little bit awkward with the grabby hands approach to doing
Sure,
Kingsmorn. We've lost one, maybe two pulls to just like grabby hands gripping an ad that clips the Ring of Peace and gets bounced
right.
back.
Yeah.
Um,
So I mean, that's what I think. Ring of Peace is really spectacular for a last second.
yeah,
Like you shouldn't be using it to get things into position. You should be using it just dropped on Anduin right before things get there, just to
yeah.
buy you
I
for a couple of seconds.
I'm playing Brewmaster on the fight and I'm dropping
Yeah,
it preemptively. So I get the despair ad and I move it into position. And by this point things are starting to get gripped in. Um and I just drop a Ring of Peace on Anduin. Like with trying to set it up so that, one of them might bump into it and get bounced back. But it just gives us a little bit of extra safety, right? That we don't have an ad just walk in.
yeah. I think at that for that aspect of the fight, it is just the best. Um, which is nice. I mean, it's nice to have that. Windwalker damage on that fight can be spectacular.
Right. The problem is it's
However,
all in the Fiendish Souls.
it's not damage to the priority targets.
Yes.
You will annihilate the fiendish souls. You will be top damage on fiendish souls. Up there with your survival hunter and your frost DK and your destruction warlocks. But you will be very, little to nothing, on the actual targets that matter.
Right.
Uh,
Like as
so there
a
are people that love that. You want to just see your name at the top of your list, then awesome. If you want
yeah.
to actually feel like you're contributing to a fight, probably less awesome for Anduin.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Um,
Destrolock as an example. We have pulls where one of our Destrolocks is, one of the highest on Fiendish Soul damage and also one of the highest on Remnant of the Lich King
yeah.
damage.
Yeah, so I mean, like looking at Warcraft logs right now, if I look at overall damage, like Windwalker is fourth, for overall damage at, about 41K. Looking at roughly the, I don't know, 75th, yeah, 75th percentile. On boss damage, Destruction Warlock is first. Destruction Warlock is 2K higher than second place for overall damage. Then, if you look at damage to bosses, Windwalker is down at the bottom above. The only people that have lost to Windwalker in boss damage are the two Beastmaster Hunters that have killed Anduin. So shame on them.
Wow, actually literally two.
Yeah, literally two. Even the two Affliction Warlocks um, did more boss damage than. But then you look at Destruction. Destruction is still 2.5K above second place, but 4K higher than third place. So compare
Yeah.
Destruction to Windwalker, and Destruction is about just shy of 5K, DPS higher overall. And then looking at boss damage, it's
Not even
10K,
close. Yeah.
10K higher.
Literally double.
So it's yeah, like there's something, and don't get me wrong, destruction is overpowered. All you destruction warlocks out there who blah blah, it's PI or whatever, you guys are wrong. Like yeah. But it's a lot, so Windwalker has that niche, and this is really the reason why I switched away from Windwalker. Because here's a fight where that niche can shine and it's just not important.
Yeah.
And what Windwalker is not good at is a relatively, like, every boss needs single target damage.
Yeah.
Not
That
every boss needs AoE.
that's such a like it I understand them wanting to have specs have niches, right? But when your niche is single target damage, it just means you're good on every fight.
Right.
Like literally 99% of fights, you're gonna be like amazing at if your niche is single target damage.
Yeah. I
And
mean, that's
as long as you don't have like other limitations, like traditionally Feral has not been the best single target damage and also hasn't brought any other meaningful utility, so nobody
right.
brings a Feral Druid. But then like right now Feral is good single target damage, and also like you were mentioning Ursul's Vortex and Typhoon, both big on setting up the Kingsborn phases um for the grabby hands.
Right.
And so Feral is significantly better off than Windwalker, which has Ring of Peace, which is amazing.
Yep.
But the single target
Yeah.
damage is just not there, and that's what matters. And then you look at the next three fights, like
Right.
Rygolon literally almost a single target fight for melee DPS.
Yeah.
Um, Lords of Dread is a two target cleave fight the whole way through, which
Right.
is
And
not enough
that's
targets for
really
Windwalker.
right. Windwalker really needs 3 to 4, to really shine. You get 4 targets up all the time like a Pantheon, you'll
Right.
you'll be fantastic. But Lords of
Yeah.
Dread 2, it actually was better for Windwalker when,
When they had the only AoE
yeah,
stuff is doubled
yeah,
because all of Windwalker's stuff is AoE.
yeah, so what would happen was you would drop your Bone Dust Brew on them at that time, and then you just spin. So your AoE, your Whirling Dragon Punch, your Spinning Crane Kick would get buffed, and that was your damage window. You could line up, all that stuff, and it was really great. But then they kind of changed it, and I think it's a great change overall.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was a change that really hurt Windwalker's ability to compare to other specs on that
Right.
fight.
Right.
And then, Rygolon, like you said, is really pretty much a single target fight unless you're a Destruction Warlock. And then Jailer is pretty much entirely a single target fight.
Right. There's the in phase three. Um, so we're talking. So I guess in phase two, there's the charms that go on players, right? Which briefly gives you four targets, but
Right.
it's brief, and they do actually have a lot of health on Mythic. So there is like if you had a Windwalker, that might be something where maybe it lines up and you push SEF and Bonus
Mhm.
Brew and you leg sweep them, which is actually also great. Leg sweep and drop both very good for that.
Yep. Very useful.
Um, but then the real issue is that you have a single target damage check to make before the Hardened Rage, and if you
Right.
can't make that, like unless the Windwalker is being net positive damage by on the boss by like letting other people ignore the mind controls, or
Right.
letting other people ignore the ads in phase three,
Right.
then
And you really just won't you wouldn't be in a situation where you would put the Windwalker only on the mind controls because you want those people back in the fight.
right,
So
right,
you're gonna have everybody blow them up. Even if a Windwalker could handle it, it's better for everyone to handle it so that they get out a little bit faster
right,
so that you get them back in the fight and get people, and get those pushes. And I
yeah,
mean, looking at the logs, there's 3 listed, Windwalker kills, which good for them, uh, pretty confident I know who they are without even looking. But they're almost in terms of damage, they're almost 10K, they're at the bottom. Then
yeah.
Survival Hunter is 900 DPS ahead of them, and then everybody else. So it's
Feral
really
Druid up at the top there too.
I you'll see me. I'll get there. Let us get through
All
Anduin first, dear
two
Lord.
parses. Yeah.
Yeah, all 2 parses. Yep, I know who those are too. And, but yes, I mean, that's I realistically, in hindsight, I should have played Assassination Rogue. Like, they are decent at AoE, and they're super strong at single target, whatever. They're a little bit slower. I should have really prioritized that APM, and looking for to be as slow as humanly possible because that's the way I like. But yeah, I mean that really this tier I feel like highlighted or highlights, I guess, and still going how Windwalker struggles.
Yeah.
Where it's not Windwalker's not bad. You go into a key, you want to do Mythic Plus. Windwalker's spectacular. A Windwalker in big pulls, in consistent pulls with Unity now, and um, being able to use, Unity and Invoker's Delight.
Yep. Yep.
Windwalker's fantastic in keys. That's where Windwalker's great at. I just don't personally do a lot of keys. Granted, I've done more this tier than really probably the whole expansion up to this point.
Gotta
But
get that tier.
uh, yeah, I know. Um, but yeah, it's really, the people that love playing Windwalker and are continuing to play with, they should still be having fun because Windwalker is still good at what most people want Windwalker to be good at. It's just not what I want Windwalker to be good at. So I switched. I was happier in Nathria when Windwalker was really spectacular at single target. Uh,
Is
you
it?
know,
I
it
don't
was
remember that.
because we had like
I
that
guess you
was
were
we were playing
playing the
Kyrian.
Kyrian.
Yep, we had Invoker's Delight. Like during those 2 minute or during that
That
window,
2 minute window, you could just blast single target. Yep.
nothing. You
Okay.
could not beat a Windwalker on pull. You could not beat a Windwalker on a fight like Sludge Fist. During that cooldown window, a Windwalker blasting under Weapons of Order with Invoker's Delight was just untouchable. In single target, and a lot of the fights in Nathria, as we'll talk about, season 4 stuff, really highlighted that 2 minutes. You know,
Right.
uh, then as we got further into Sanctum or into Sanctum and now into Sepulcher, it became more of that 1 minute,
Yeah.
focus in Sanctum, and now Sepulcher is kind of a mix. Even actually, Sepulcher almost highlights 3 minutes, and kind of longer cooldown timings because a lot of the bigger damage phases come
Right.
even more spread out.
Like using Anduin as an example,
Right,
your two intermission phases where you get to do like double damage or whatever it is, 150% damage.
right,
Um, it's uh 3 minutes apart.
yeah,
It's on a timer. It's always 3 minutes apart. There's no way to make it faster. At least you skip one entirely. Like if you skip phase two
right,
and the second intermission, great. But other than that, it's 3 minutes apart. So if you can have something like a Ravenous Frenzy that is a very powerful still even after the nerf 3 minute
right,
cooldown, then you're going to crush it. Uh, Lords of Dread actually is a 2 minute fight because
right,
the swarm phases are 2 minutes apart. But it's also one that benefits from you cleaving two targets while it's active.
right.
So
Yeah. So I mean, this is just Windwalker has the power. The fights in the raid just don't reflect it. Windwalker is still very powerful in Mythic Plus, where it's really always been powerful, and from I'm assuming probably still pretty powerful in PvP. But really, there's just not as many fights as as the expansion has gone on. The fights have kind of shifted away from Windwalker's strength.
right, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So kind of actually skipping around a little bit. So we're getting new talent trees in Dragonflight. Monk has actually never had real talent trees. We've always
Correct.
had the mop style talents because, of course, Monk was introduced in Mists of
Yeah.
Pandaria. Um, so
Yeah, that
kind
was a
of
fun realization when I was trying to think about things. I was like, what would a Windwalker, talent tree look like?
right,
And oh, I have no basis for this. I
right,
like the closest we had is artifact weapons, in terms of
yeah.
having really a tree style system. So yeah, it's very weird as
So
somebody who's played for all that time, but really in terms of monk
yeah,
stuff, only been using this talent style.
yeah. Um, what are some things that you would like to see on the talent tree that maybe actually would kind of help with this like one trick pony scenario that Windwalker has found itself in?
Yes. So that's actually something I spent a lot of time, and I've got kind of the early draft of an article about it, really waiting to see, once we get alpha and once we get some information, what we have is, and what kind of changes to start asking for. Um, I would really like Windwalker, and I advocated for this going into Shadowlands as well. I think Windwalker can very easily have that flexibility
Hmm.
to be to be able to be single target focused as what or AoE focused or somewhere in between. I think Windwalker has the kit to be able to do that.
Right.
Where if you want to focus on single target damage, you're going to lean into more talents that are aimed at Rising Sun Kick.
Yeah.
Bringing back tornado kicks. As people love the double backflip.
Right.
Or Swift roundhouse and um, stuff like that. Sunrise technique, or whatever they were, they all have it's the same things had a dozen different names, and other minor stuff over the years. But bringing back a little bit more focus on that, leaning into some of the, like what we have now in the Zuin's Treasure, um, legendary where, Rising Sun Kick benefits Fist of Fury benefits Rising Sun Kick. That can be more of a all-purpose style,
Right.
where you have more of that interplay. And then you can lean into more AoE focus, where, maybe Mark of the Crane is a talent you take,
Yeah.
in the
And then
tree where
you just don't take it on a single target fight.
right, and you just don't need it. Right. And there's gonna be a break point where you're gonna snag that talent and you're gonna go bananas, and really spin to win. So I think having those options, having, three again, really not having a great idea of what talent trees are gonna look like. You could have three paths. You could have a Rising Sun Kick focus path for single target damage. You can have a Spinning Crane Kick focus path for AoE damage. Then you have a Fist of Fury focus path, where you bring back Fury of Zuen, as from the or the Azerite traits.
Right.
Maybe the AoE focus one, brings back Mark of the Crane and the other things that buff that, or maybe Mark of the Crane is still there, but gets significantly more powerful with talents. Maybe Rushing Jadewind becomes this AoE, generator like it used to be. Have it replace Blackout Kick, like it used to be, or maybe I can't remember. That was
That is
missing.
before my time.
I'm trying to remember. It replaced Spinning Crane Kick, I think.
That would
But
make
yeah, whatever.
sense.
It's but yeah, so have it, replace that kind of stuff. I think there's a ton of options for flexibility, and Windwalker has that kit. Um, where you're talking about things like Chi Explosion, being a really flexible. Maybe Chi Explosion is that third, you know, middle ground focus where, all right, here's a fight where there's a little bit of single target, a little bit of AoE. I'm okay with not being spectacular. I don't want to focus on one. So here's Chi Explosion that I can pick and choose how many Chi I spend, and stuff like that as kind of that capstone, of
Right.
that direction and be able to focus on that. So I think Windwalker's talent tree has tons of potential. Um, in whatever direction they want to take it. Maybe if they want to focus on the cooldowns, maybe you have Serenity as a capstone on one side, as a single
Right.
target capstone.
Right.
Maybe you have Storm Earth and Fire, the original Storm Earth and Fire, as a spread cleave capstone option. And
All
then
right.
you
I'm
have
gonna need you
Storm
to
Earth
explain
and
what you
Fire
mean by the original SEF.
now. Yes, that's probably yeah. So originally Storm Earth and Fire was not a cooldown. It was a toggle that you could put it on a target,
Mm.
and you would send out your spirits, and so you would attack your target, and you could send two different spirits out for them to attack.
So thinking of like
On
a
different targets.
what's the four target or two target cleave fight uh from Antorus? You would
Yeah.
put one or two of your spirits on one, you would be on the other, and
Well, right. So the way that it worked was if you had one spirit out, you did a certain amount of damage less. I think it
right,
was you did 55% of of your normal damage.
right,
So total, you're doing 110%. If you had your second spirit out, then you're doing 45%. So total, you're doing 135% damage.
right,
And that could use some balancing and tweaks and stuff. But really, the most important thing was that it allowed for spread cleave,
right,
which is something that melee does not have, and
right.
is something that actually relatively few non-dot classes have.
Yeah,
So Windwalker had that, and it was great in theory. It was really rough in practice. There was a lot of things that we didn't figure out. I'm sure Hina's watching the stream right now, and he,
yeah,
can
yeah,
remember when we got halfway through Warlords of Draenor. We had played with it all through Mists, and we got halfway through Warlords of Draenor before we found out or realized, or whatever you want to call it, that they needed their own Tiger Palm debuff and their own Rising Sun Kick debuff. We didn't know that for years, and we were pretty good at that kind of stuff. Like, it wasn't like we weren't looking. Um, so it just had a lot of things that didn't make sense. A lot of people used it in single target because it kind of read that way,
mm,
even though it really didn't. So people lost damage that way. But what I'm saying is, if on a fight like Lords of Dread, you could just put your other spirit on one and then you stay. You don't have to worry about target switching. You can stay on, one target, your spirit's on the other, it's copying your damage, you're doing 10% just in its very existence.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You look at a fight like, uh, Pantheon, you're gonna have both of them out. So now you have 3 of you spinning around.
Yep.
And then so that could be a capstone option, as a spread AoE option, and then maybe the AoE kind of Mythic Plus type capstone. And I don't even know if the capstones are even in this system, so as in the same way they have been. But maybe the AoE focused one is, just the fact that spinning crane kick now generates Mark of the Crane stacks. Simple as that. That can be something you talent into if you need to, if you're going to be in big target situations.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so I think Windwalker has tons of really great options they can draw on. They don't have to reinvent any wheels.
Yeah.
We have the wheels from the past, just they just have to be used.
Yep. So here's a fun idea. Talenting out of Fist of Fury.
Mm,
Hmm.
no,
Hmm.
not like no. I'd rather talent out of spinning crane kick. Yeah, I think Fist of Fury is just yeah. I'd rather talent out of spinning crane kick.
So
I,
all those tiers that it's been correct to like either not cast or to cancel Fist of Fury.
right.
Just imagine being able to talent out of Fist of Fury and not even have the ability to accidentally push that button on your bars. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think the gain there would have to be really something. I mean, but that's me. That's somebody that likes. I like Fist of Fury for the downtime. I like it for the 3 to 4 seconds where I'm not having to press anything. I can think about what to press next.
yeah,
Other people don't like that downtime, and I
I
understand
don't. I'm one of
they're
those
wrong.
people. I don't like
You know,
Fist of Fury. Like, I mean, I like Fist of Fury because Fist of Fury is a cool ability, but I don't like pressing the button. I don't like
right,
pushing it and then having to sit there. I don't like pushing it and then sitting there and then having to cancel it to interrupt something or to stun
right.
something.
Well, right. That is something that that just yeah.
Yeah,
The fact
yeah,
that you can't interrupt during Fist of Fury
drives me up a
when
wall.
the interrupt is called spear hand strike or like it's a punch with your fist. You're already furiously fisting. Why not just hit them,
Yep.
and have an interrupt? Like it doesn't make any sense. I would get it if the interrupt was a kick. If it was called a kick, all right, I can't. I'm fist of furying. My fists are going crazy. I can't throw a kick in here. I'll fall over. But it doesn't make any sense when you're already punching. Why can't you just throw in a punch that interrupts them?
You know, it's
Um,
extra funny. You can interrupt during spinning crane kick because of the way that like
right.
because
Yeah, because of the
the
way the
channel is
channels work.
longer than the GCD
Yeah.
and they let you cast during the end of the channel and yeah.
Yeah. No, that whole yeah. That you can interrupt during whirling dragon punch. Assuming it doesn't take you out of range.
Well,
Um,
it's a big assumption.
like well, right. Or get you killed because, oh my god, there's a mechanic under my feet now. But yeah, that the whole thing with Fist of Fury, and I would be okay if that is something you talent into
That would be an awesome
early on.
talent. Like,
Like
okay,
I
so
think
you pick up Fist of Fury, right? And then there's a choice talent or whatever after that
right,
where you can pick up like, maybe one of them is Fist of Fury parries now, like the
right.
PvP talent, and one of them is like a Fist of Fury, like you can interrupt during Fist of Fury.
Yep. Or a slow, let it reduce their movement speed to 0%. Or the Fist of Fury stunning, stuff like that. The way
That
that
one's
I
gonna be a
looked at a
little bit
lot of
much.
the options. Well, but when you have to choose, like I think one of the things that I really liked in the past that I wish that this would kind of be the way things work is the old glyph system.
Mhm.
Where you could go in and say, all right, there were a time that you could decide I wanted a glyph that if I and I might be pulling this out of my butt, but I also might be remembering accurately. But there was a glyph that, your blackout kick left a dot. So okay, if there's single target, here's a little bit more single target damage. Here's kind of a different style that my blackout kick works. On the
Right.
flip side, there might have been a glyph or there could be a glyph that okay, now my blackout kick hits 2 targets, like we have in Torghast.
Yeah.
Torghast opened up a lot of cool functionality for things
Yeah.
that could, with those tweaks, things like Tiger Palm dashing, that little 5 yards
Oh
could be a
man.
glyph.
So that's the key for Skyreach legendary as well, which is
Yeah,
also just a fun legendary to use. Also
it
has
is. It's
gotten
so
me
much fun.
killed so many times. It's kind of the whirling dragon punch effect. Like you press whirling
Okay.
dragon punch, something happens and you die. Or well, this is like you walk out for a mechanic and it just absentmindedly like your tiger palm button is lit up. You can push it. You push
Right.
tiger palm and you're back in the mechanic and you die.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's like but that's what I think where if you could have options, 2 to 3 options for these major buttons,
Yeah.
right? These core buttons, your rising sun kicks, your fists of fury, your spinning crane kicks, right? Pick if Blizzard wants to pick 4 or 5 core abilities for Windwalker or for each spec, and then you have 3 options off of that.
Yeah.
Maybe your fist of fury. I wrote all this down somewhere. I'm trying to remember, but I wrote all this down somewhere. I just don't know where I wrote
Hina
it
in
down.
chat is also confirming that the blackout kick dot was in fact a glyph.
Okay, excellent, good. I'm a genius. All right, so, but yeah, so I think there's a lot of really cool options for that kind of stuff, where you can and then you can let them change like talents, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I don't expect them to ever bring back the old glyph system for a number of
no,
reasons, but I do like yeah, I agree. The old like major minor glyphs that well, mostly we basically still have minor glyphs, but the old major glyph system was was nice when you
yeah,
didn't end up locked into the same three glyphs all the time.
right, and I think with all of the stuff we've seen since then, the glyph system could be used as a pseudo talent system.
Yeah.
Um, because the concern obviously about these trees and the reason that they got away from the trees was because a lot of things were mandatory or a lot of things were fluff. 5% damage to this is not exciting. It doesn't change how you play unless, it then turns us into dropping Fists of Fury or never rising sun kicking, stuff like that. That
Yep.
has happened. Um, but there are a lot of things in the past that we've seen. Oh, I found it. That would be really nice to improve. So for example, and to if Rising Sun Kick could have 3 glyphs, right? These major abilities have 3 glyphs. You have Glory of the Dawn, so the chance to do the backflip, Glory of the
Yep.
Dawn slash tornado kicks, chance for it to hit a second time. Let that chance be crit based, right? Give Windwalker some crit focus.
Give more specs, crit, and mastery interactions.
Yeah. And I think Windwalker fits that really well because we're martial artists. The whole point is to be able to hit in the right way, right? Crit really should be a powerful, and it is now for Windwalker. Don't get me wrong, but it is kind of incidentally rather than kind of purposefully.
Yeah.
Maybe Rising Sun Kick, another glyph, is what we have in Zuen's Treasure. Crits reduce Fists of Fury's cooldown. That was the best tier set, part of the best tier set we've ever had. Let's keep that going. Keep that an option. And then you have Sunrise Technique, which was a lesser used Azurite trait that increases damage taken by the target, right? So, that just increases you do X amount more physical damage to that target.
Right.
So you can kind of decide what manner would you like your Rising Sun Kick. Do you want a little bit more burst with Glory of the Dawn, a little bit more AoE by, Fists of Furies, or somewhat, a little bit more, kind of sustained single target with something like Sunrise Technique. Similarly, Fist of Fury, right? Maybe there's a glyph that it does 100% damage to all targets, or maybe it only damages one target but does 50% more damage to that target. Or maybe for each target hit, it increases the crit chance of Rising Sun Kick. Stuff like that. There's a
Yeah.
lot of really cool options that we've seen over the years that we can use. Blackout kick is the third example that I had is leaving a dot on the target, which I'm looking at now was also part of the teaching of the monastery. I think it was a passive back in Mists. If you're behind the target, it places a dot, and I think if you're in front of the target, it healed you a little bit. But right, so a dot on that target um,
Yeah.
hitting additional targets like we see in Torghast with shadow boxing treads,
Right.
or hit scheme, where the blackout kicks in between increase the damage of your next rising sun kick. So there's just tons of
I would
really
love
beautiful options for that.
I would love to see the blackout kick, rising sun kick thing from Mistweaver get ported over,
Right.
where you like
Yes.
blackout kicks, and every blackout kick, what is it? So it's tiger palms make your blackout kicks, like every tiger palm gives you an extra blackout kick the next time you press it. Every
Yep.
blackout kick has a chance to reset the cooldown on your rising sun kick. So maybe not the whole thing, but like getting the extra blackout kick
Well,
cast
parts of
is
it.
is cool and fun.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, the best design, the point that most people point to Windwalkers in terms of, like, prime design was that Tomb of Sargeras tier bonus. And that was because we had a lot of interplay between our
yeah,
abilities. Fist of Fury and Rising Sun Kick synergized beautifully. And Windwalker's a spec that makes sense. You want that flow from one ability to the other. Functionally, for people like you and for others that are not a big fan of Fist of Fury's
channel,
channeling
yeah,
time. Back in Tomb of Sargeras, people don't realize that was towards the highest end that Windwalker had of actual downtime, in between button presses. However, it was active downtime. You were still Fist of Furying. You were still doing damage. It wasn't like downtime as an assassination rogue or downtime as a feral druid, where you're sitting and waiting for your resources. You had ebbs and flows. You had that function. And that's where Windwalker, really felt the best. That's why they brought it back for Zuin's Treasure. It's a fan favorite. I would have liked for it to be a little bit stronger, so it would have been, the play.
the legendary that people used,
Um,
yeah,
or maybe I should say I would have liked Invoker's Delight to maybe be half as strong because it's really Invoker's Delight that's the problem, not everything else.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah, I just think, Blizzard, and I'm hoping, and I've been advocating for a long time that I'm hoping they look back and they really find the things that worked and bring them back
yeah,
rather than trying to remake things.
yeah.
I think the new tier set bonuses are fine. I think it's a good idea. But I would really like, tier sets to almost kind of still go away for a period of time and really kind of get down to what made these specs and these classes work well in the past rather than keep continually trying to rework things. We have a lot of new players that never played in Tomb of Sargeras, and
Right.
Zuin's Treasure was not strong enough to use. Like, I'd like for them to be able to really feel how that felt, in so the smoothness and the flow. And I'm sure other specs have that thing, that
Yeah, I
they
mean,
think
there's a lot of potential for just like having an old tier set bonus, like a 4-piece bonus or
yep,
combined 2-piece, 4-piece bonus, be just a talent.
yeah,
And that's the kind of thing I'm definitely with you there. I would like to see those in there, like, and the kind of glyphs. Some of the, like, there are some glyphs that I don't think should ever come back, and it's mostly because they just don't do anything. Like, they're, a very passive damage
right,
increase. They don't
sure,
change how things play in any meaningful fashion, and those are the kinds of talents that I don't want in the talent
right,
tree, right? But there's still some good ones from back in the day.
yeah.
I'm also totally unrelated, realizing just now, an hour and change, actually not an hour, 50 minutes into this, I forgot to press start recording on Zencaster.
Oh no!
So, uh, that's gonna make my editing session very annoying because I'm gonna have to download the video and rip the audio from it.
That's what we do for all of our roundtables every year.
Yeah,
Because one of us forgets to press play, but we always stream it for people that can't be at their computer, and because then streams, remember everything. So yeah, no, it is a pain. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
I'm sorry in advance, whoever people listening to this in the audio version in the future. Sorry, that's why the audio quality sucks this week.
yeah, we can blame Anomaly.
Yep, yep, yep. That's the plan. Um, but yeah, so yeah, I'm pretty excited about what we're potentially gonna get with the talent system. And one more thing, actually, before we move on to season 4 stuff. Um, are there any covenant abilities that you want to come back in the talent tree?
Hmm. Um, I mean, for my answer to that personally, for my desire to press as few buttons as possible in this game would be Fallen Order.
Oh my god.
So,
No,
if
no,
you tell me there's a button that I can just press every couple minutes and it's gonna do a big chunk of my damage, I'm in, like, uh, let them do it.
Oh my god, Babs.
I would like the style of play that comes from Kyrian to be an option. I would like that style of play to be more what Serenity really is.
Right, kind of. Well,
Um,
actually, maybe just making Serenity the Windwalker weapons of order.
right. I think Weapons of Order as a buff works better than Serenity as a buff. I think it makes more sense. I think it's functionally better. I think it's a better Serenity. Um, I think the play style that came from Phaline Stomp, which had just that extra little button that people could press. I think it kind of smoothed out some of that downtime that people weren't liking,
Right.
while still giving a little bit of that interplay. I liked that Chi Burst resets the cooldown, of
Yeah.
Phaline Stomp. I
Unintended
liked that.
interaction, but yeah.
I did. I thought that's probably my favorite aspect of Phaline Stomp. Is that you can choose. All right, I'm going to stomp twice, or oh man, I'm going to have to move soon. Let me save my Chi Burst. Uh, I like that. And then I think the spin to win style that was generated from Necrolord, I think is okay. Um,
So we only have so many talents in the tree, right? Like thinking
right.
back through all the different stuff that Windwalker has had. Are these like are you saying all of them? You would like all of the covenant abilities over some of the stuff from previous?
I no, not necessarily want the covenant abilities, but want the style that they
Right.
create.
So you want to be able to spin to win. You want to be
Right. So
able
I
to
like
have that kind of serenity weapons of order play
yeah.
style.
So I think like the way that I would so Weapons of Order I think could just be Serenity,
Yeah.
right? Boom,
Yeah.
problem solved. Phaline Stomp, I think, gets generated. Phaline Stomp served the spot that Strike of the Windlord did. That people loved that,
Right. Okay.
right? It just gave you that one extra button. It wasn't overwhelming,
Yeah.
but it did a decent amount of damage, not a ton. Strike obviously did more, um,
Yeah,
but it
because
just
Feline Stomp does
yeah, it
nothing.
helped. Right, it helped kind of fill in that gap in the rotation just a little bit without it being overwhelming, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then I would like something like the way Necrolord works now, where once you hit it, you spin for 10 seconds. Let that be like if Mark of the Crane is strong enough,
Yeah.
or let it be a buff, that falls off after, like, let it be once you hit 5 targets, right? It falls off. And once it falls off, they all fall off, or something like that. Let it be a personal buff rather than a debuff.
Right.
Once you hit X number of targets, it just goes. So there's going to be that break point at whatever where you decide to forsake everything else
And
and
spin.
spin.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. I think that's an okay, method to do things. Or maybe you just spin Tiger Palm, spin Tiger Palm, spin Tiger Palm, so that you keep up your resources, or you pool a little bit so you can spin back and forth. I think the style that is generated from all of the Covenant abilities, because Fallen Order just lets you press a button and go to sleep for a little bit, like, is good. So I think Fallen Order that shouldn't really actually be a function of Windwalker as much as I like it. I understand I am in the minority for that sort of thing, but
I mean, if you want to push a button and then go to sleep, you could play a rogue.
well, and right, and that's what I thought I was getting out of Feral Druid, but then Owl Weaving exists and
Ah,
really puts the kibosh on that. But yeah, so I think the style that comes from 3 of the 4 covenants is really a very good style for Windwalker and can be an option,
yeah.
going forward in
Yeah.
very different and healthier ways for the spec.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. I definitely like the idea. So weapons of order for Brewmaster and for Mistweaver can just stay dead. Like that one, it's a totally different spell. It's the same name, but it's a totally different spell. It can just stay dead. The Windwalker weapons of order though, definitely would make sense as like a Serenity kind of cooldown.
Right. Yep. And that's I think that because the way Serenity works now is poopy. It worked better in the past. They tweaked it to try and make it better, and somehow made it worse.
I don't even know
Um,
how it works now. I've not read the tooltip for that ability since Legion.
honestly, I can't tell you off the top of my head. Like, because the only time you use it is with weapons of order, and when you do that, weapons of order uh, is the more impactful
Right.
of those abilities.
Weapons of order is the important one.
Right, it makes things free, and you do a little bit more damage. The making things free doesn't matter because weapons of order reduces the cooldown or the
The
cost of
costs,
things
right? You
when
Rising
Rising
Sun
Sun
kick,
Kick
you have
goes
the
down.
chi cost reduction.
Yeah. So that's the better aspect of it. Reducing cooldowns, I think, is good. I think that can stay in. That's the aspect of Serenity that works really well with weapons of order. So that can stay in. But really cool the cost of things being reduced to zero really doesn't matter with weapons of order, but weapons of order I think does it better.
Yeah,
I think the refund mechanic is better than the free mechanic.
right. That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. Um, well, speaking of some of these old raids we've been talking about, we've got season 4 coming up in the relatively near future. We don't know. We don't know when it's coming. 9.2.5, I think, will be around sooner rather than later. Um,
Yeah.
and then sometime in the future, after 9.2.5, so they have confirmed that season 4 is not coming, like it's not linked to
Right.
9.2.5. We will get 9.2.5 first, and then sometime after that point we will get season 4 release. So we will get the cross faction rating,
Yep.
and other quality of life changes like fix ups to catch up mechanics like renown. Will be coming with 9.2.5 whenever that releases. Fingers crossed soon. My mage is almost level 60. Um, and then sometime after that, we're gonna get season 4, which, as a recap, because we've been talking about Dragonflight, uh, but as a recap, is all of the raids from Shadowlands. So
Mhm.
every week there's gonna be one that's got a special bonus on it. Um, they're still tuning the specific affixes. We talked about them previously on the podcast, but there's special affixes on it. We don't know how difficult or easy it's going to be tuned.
Right.
But there's one braid that has this bonus that you can go in, you can get higher eye level loot. Next week it's a different raid, and it's just going to rotate between Castle Nathria, Sanctum of Domination, and Sepulcher of the first ones.
Mhm.
Now we actually have very early on the PTR. There were some vendors added around the Great Vault in Oribos that now have items on them. The items that they have are raid drops.
Yep.
We have, for example, there you can buy an old warrior's soul, or a Jathus, or a cruciform vein ripper.
Yeah.
Some of us didn't get those the first time
Some of us had to threaten to kick a resto shaman to get one.
around. um, so the vendors got items added to them. Um, and this is like honestly not something that I was expecting. We also got a blue post, which I don't have handy right now, but um, there's a blue post explaining how this is going to work. We're going to be getting a quest when season 4 starts. You kill, I believe it's 30 raid bosses that have the bonus affix on them. So you can't just go and clear all 3 raids when we can be done. It's going to take you at least 3 weeks to get the 30 boss kills. Um, More realistically, for a lot of us, it's going to take us 4 weeks because we might not get back through Mythic Sire Denathrius or Mythic, Sylvanas the
Right.
first time back through. I actually don't even think it has to be Mythic either, so maybe we just go in
Yeah,
normal.
I don't believe so. Well, that's something that I don't know if we've really seen, like
Yeah,
there's not been really a a confirmation of what the difficulty is going to be.
We know
You
it's
know,
going to be normal, heroic, mythic, but what we don't know is whether like the mythic we're getting is going to be mythic. You
right?
can't see me if you're listening doing air quotes mythic, or if it's going to be mythic. Like, is this good? And I think it can't be real mythic, right? Because we're not going to be able to spend 3 weeks
Right,
progressing mythic Cyrus and Athreus again. It's going to go away for 2 weeks.
right. The difficulty can't be right. Well, and and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I we've seen that the loot can be mythic quality.
Yeah, but you don't have to
Um,
get it from doing mythic
right.
difficulty.
And so that aspect almost leads me to believe that mythic, at least in my impression, and I could be wrong, is that mythic difficulty won't exist. Is that this is going to be a heroic thing, a flex-based thing, so you don't have
Yeah,
to go in with 20, and then you can work to upgrade these items to mythic quality,
yeah.
which will then just make further clears even easier.
So my thinking is that this is actually we're gonna have a mythic difficulty, and it's
Mm,
just that basically you can shortcut. Well, actually no, because there's a single fixed difficulty off of the vendor, right?
right.
So okay, let's actually finish talking about the acquisition before we get into all of that. So you get a quest when season 4 releases. It has you kill 30 bosses. You kill 30 bosses, you get a coin and a second quest. The second quest has you kill 20 bosses. You complete that, you get a second coin and another quest to kill 10 bosses. You complete that, you get your third and final coin. So that's a very important piece of this. You only get 3 coins. So you can buy 3 items. And what that means is you're not going to be able to like just get full mythic gear by clearing, normal and collecting your coins. You're going to get 3. And so that really means that you're limited to kind of to looking at these specialty items, the vein rippers of the world,
Mm.
before basically without looking at anything else. And the staggered like the delay on this, right? The 3 weeks at least before you can get the first one kind of serves as a way to make sure you don't, jump the gun and buy something and then get it in, one of your early clears. But because of the rotation, you're just not going to have that much time in any individual raid. You're going to have 1/3 the chances to get a Vein Ripper or a Jathis or a Gavel, that you would have otherwise. The second piece of it is so this vendor, it's got fixed item levels for all of the items. The coins are the same. Doesn't
Mm.
matter which difficulty boss you kill, the coin is the same. What it does gives you when you kill a raid boss that has this bonus affix on it, you get a currency, like an item that you can basically use like WAD Valor where you could upgrade items. Like I don't know if you can upgrade your other like non-vendor items. It's actually something I should pull back up.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
But you can the items from the vendor. You take your currency that you get from killing bosses and you use it to upgrade those items. I think you can use it to upgrade other what they call faded items. Faded is the affix. So, um, what this is going to do is 2 things. First off, it guarantees you're going to be able to get some of these items. Like I cleared Painsmith, I don't know how many times in Sanctum, and never saw a mythic. I mean, we had Vein Rippers drop. They went to a Demon Hunter and an Enhancement Shaman and another Demon Hunter. And so I never got any. Like I
You're just a
used
tank, you whiny baby.
I had heroic ones the whole tier. I used heroic ones from like week 4 until partway into Sepulcher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No
Yeah, no,
bueno.
yeah, I definitely like the potential that they have here for that. Like, and we talked about this. I don't know if you were involved, but we talked about this in Discord,
Mhm.
for a bit. To like going forward, the valor system, integrating something like that, the valor
The
system
upgrade
back into
stuff.
raids is a really good idea.
Yeah.
because the thing that people didn't like about the old Valor system, the original Valor system, was that it was separate. It was another avenue. It was, okay, I've got to grind Valor just so I can go get raid loot.
Right.
And, really, the Valor cap right now has been way too low, but that's
Yeah.
an easy fix. And, really, I think it's something that, they can continue to use because you can be someone like and really want a certain item that just doesn't drop, so maybe, you know, you can buy that item with Valor, or maybe you get Valor to buy coins, the old coin system, and say, okay, on this boss, I'm going to use 5 coins that I've saved up, and I am going to guarantee myself a piece, or I am going to guarantee this piece off of this boss,
Yeah.
and I think there's just a lot of options that they can use for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's all really cool.
Yeah. And so I actually went and found the blue post because I was like, I don't want to be wrong about the ability to upgrade non-coin
Sure.
items. But I found it, and so a couple things. First off, killing bosses on heroic or mythic difficulty, so there will be a mythic difficulty, will
Okay.
drop a shard of an upgrade item, and collecting enough, currently 20, will combine to upgrade faded gear to their heroic or mythic versions.
Okay.
So what this means is that you collect 20, you upgrade an item to heroic or mythic. It doesn't matter what difficulty it was. They actually Scarzard posted a clarification later. Um, if you have a heroic upgrade item, it will upgrade an LFR or a normal item to heroic. So you don't have to like go through every difficulty when you're doing your upgrade. You
Okay.
can also take a mythic upgrade item and turn your LFR item directly into a mythic item.
Ooh, that's lovely.
So you can actually like just completely like if we're clearing mythic every week, right?
Sure.
They also there's another clarification we'll get to. But if you're clearing mythic every week, you can just like every 2 weeks like just take like an item and make it a mythic item. So
Right.
I can take I'm not gonna be able to take my old vein rippers, but if I get, a heroic or a normal or an LFR, God forbid, it's with LFR as a trap. Um uh vein ripper, I can take that and make it a a mythic vein ripper, which is gonna be amazing. Um
Right, but it allows you to really benefit from playing more.
right.
Like if you want to, if there is that thing, you could run that twice, you could run every difficulty, and and then it doesn't matter what difficulty you get it in.
Yeah.
You're able to use it.
So
I think that's a big difference.
since these upgrade items are split, so you're going to get basically heroic shards and you're going to get mythic shards. That means, of course, that the boss kills for those, like, they're not going to be connected in the way that if you remember, like, the Eternal Palace upgrade item,
Right.
where you would clear through, if you cleared heroic and you went and cleared mythic, you would get less from mythic because it would just give you the difference. Mythic gave, I don't remember what it's like 4, and heroic gave 3. So if you did heroic, you get your 3, and you go do mythic and you get 1, so you had 4 total. Since these are separate, you're going to be able to um, get, you could clear both, but you don't. If you're a mythic raider, you don't need to clear both because the heroic one can't bump things to mythic. It can only bump them to heroic.
Right.
The other clarification here is that for those quests, those kill quests, um, those do count unique boss kills for the week. So if we talk about like Sanctum of Domination, killing the Terragru on Mythic is 1 kill. If you then went and killed it on Heroic, it would be 0 additional kills.
Right.
So it functions like the Great Vault does, where like which Vault very annoying in this way, but the Vault, every boss you kill, like you need 10 distinct bosses or 8
Right.
distinct bosses, whatever it is now, um, to get your full through vault. So to get your kill quest complete, you need to kill different bosses every week. And so that might mean that you kill 5 bosses on Mythic, and you go and you kill the other 5 on Heroic in order to get your 10 boss kills.
Right.
But you're not going to need to week 1 do 3 clears of Castle Nathria or something in order to get your dinar, which is what they call the coins.
Yep.
You're gonna get your coin week 3 at the soonest, because that's how like every tier this expansion has 10 to 11 bosses.
Right.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I think it shows, obviously there's going to be some bits and pieces, some things we kind of just have to see. But I think one of the things with them, removing Valor Cap, with them setting up things this way is really, to me, it gives me the impression that they're listening,
yeah.
and that the people that are driving the ship now are doing so with our best interest in mind.
I don't know
I've
if I could
become
go
very
that far, but they're at least
well,
listening.
okay. The people that are being listened to are doing so, or well,
Yeah,
okay. The people that have always had our best interests in mind are now being listened to a
there we
little
go.
bit more
Okay,
than they
yeah,
used to
yeah.
be.
I can get behind that one. Yeah,
That's the best way to put it. Yeah, so because obviously those people have always been there,
right.
but they just haven't been listened to. So yeah, so I think that's probably, um, the truth of the matter, and it gives me good. I mean, I've been saying for a long time that I've been playing this game for well over a decade. And if you consider the fact that I get paid to write guides and all that stuff, I've been doing this game professionally for a long time. And, but Shadowlands really, and BFA and into Shadowlands, and just kind of my feelings on how Windwalker had been and the game as a whole, really was using up a lot of the remaining goodwill that I had.
Yeah, they had to.
So, like, I've been in my wife has never believed me when I said this, but, I've been saying that Blizzard has until the end of progression of the first tier of next expansion to keep me around. If they can get through that, they will have earned enough goodwill that I will play for another extended period of time. But if by the end of Prague, of the first tier of next expansion, I'm like, this game is just not doing it. It's not worth it. It's not fun. I hate this about it. I hate this about it. Then I'll just stop.
Yeah,
And it's, it will have been a great run and a fabulous part of my life. But, Shadowlands really, hurt from, in certain ways. So it's it feels like they're getting to what I'm hoping they are gonna get to. And we'll have to see in Dragonflight and stuff. And what we'll see, what we'll be telling is once we get alpha and beta, is how do they iterate on things?
yep,
Are they listening to us then?
yep.
Because that was a big problem for Shadowlands, is we gave them a lot of issues in Shadowlands alpha
And
and beta,
very
a
few of them
big
got
problem in
addressed.
BFA, right, and very few got addressed at the time. A lot of them have been addressed since then,
Right.
but they stuck their foot in the ground and said, "Nah, we're not gonna change it. We like it this way." And then later we're like, "Oh, they're throwing us a bone." I
Yep.
don't like that, keeping what's broken and fixing it later as a reward. The benevolence of them finally reaches to the point that they fix something that we've been asking for them to be fixed for a while.
Yeah.
So if they iterate more proactively, um, I think, they will keep me around, and they will, keep me doing all the stuff that I've been doing. And I'm hopeful that that's the case. Uh, and it's the prognosis is looking better and better.
Yeah.
Um,
I am very
it's
curious what our talent tree is going to look like. I kind of getting back to that. Like, I'm very curious what our talent tree is going to look like, given that Monk has never had one. Right. This is going to be
Yeah,
one. Like, I expect that Demon Hunter and Monk are going to have a ton of iteration in their talent trees.
yeah,
Just there's no old talent trees to look back on and be like, ah, this worked and this really didn't work, and you know, there's fewer things to go back and grab. Although Monk has it a lot better than Demon Hunter because it's got 2 extra expansions of cool stuff to go and take. Uh, but yeah,
yeah. But I will at no point in my WoW career ever feel bad for Demon Hunters, so they brought that on themselves.
Yes. Well, actually, no, I take that back. I feel bad for Vengeance Demon Hunters every tier.
Yeah, I don't they Vengeance pretty much doesn't exist in my brain.
I have been actually tanking with the Vengeance Demon Hunter pretty much 100%
I
of the
yeah, I
time
know.
since actually all expansion. The whole expansion, pretty much. Cast on Nathria, Sanctum, half of Sepulcher, and
Yep.
current co-tank is not Vengeance. So, uh, it's
Yeah, it's a brave new world.
a brave new world. Tanking with something that isn't an edge lord.
Yeah, well, and I just
Actually,
think
that's not true. I'm
like
tanking with Blood DK. So
yeah, right. It hasn't gotten much better. Yeah, I think, for that, like, Demon Hunters just, always seem like Monk's edgier, you know, older sibling that never really broke out of that super edgy phase, or maybe, I guess, maybe younger sibling for Vengeance, but older sibling for Havoc.
well,
No, you know what? No, I'm gonna say younger sibling across the board because, like, a little bit more favorites get away with a little bit more, at least from a Havoc perspective.
yeah. I mean, Vengeance had exactly one expansion where it really like worked mechanically, and then since then it's been awful mechanically, but sometimes fine numerically.
Right.
So yeah, bring
Yeah. No,
bring
I
back
mean,
Legion Vengeance.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I get all that stuff, and I think there'll be a lot of really interesting things, that how they're gonna go over the next couple weeks is because I do think like you do that we're going to see 925. I'm thinking probably before the middle or end of June at the latest,
I wouldn't be
maybe even earlier.
surprised. I would not be surprised to see 9.2.5 first week of June. I
Yes,
don't think we
that's
can see
kind of,
it sooner than that, but first week of
yeah,
June,
I
I would
think
not be surprised.
like that last week, whatever the Tuesday is of, yeah, so like the 31st of
Yeah,
May is a Tuesday. Like,
yeah,
I think the 31st or the 7th, those would really be kind of the days that I would expect to be.
right.
I think end of June at the latest. Um, and then I think once we get that, I think there'll be a week or 2, and then we'll start getting alpha. And, I love being in alpha and beta over summer because I have more time, to sit and stream and to really look into that stuff. I mean, that when we had an alpha over summer was when I made that enormous spreadsheet for Windwalkers in Legion. Um, so I had a lot more time. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get in there sooner rather than later
This is the part
and
where I
really
make a
see what.
joke about not getting into alpha or beta for
Yeah,
Shadowlands. I only got into the beta for BFA because someone went and asked, no, who on the theory side could use beta access? And I got it like that.
yeah, yeah. My understanding is people, air quotes, are being a little more proactive with putting forth a list.
Well,
Um,
I have it.
type of
I have a
situation.
friends and family alpha set up now, so I'm
There
good
you go.
because I've
There you
got
go.
friends at Blizzard now.
Oh man, does that mean you're gonna get it before me?
Actually, probably
Darn
so.
it!
But
I
I
was
mean,
second wave last time.
I have no idea. I don't know how it works. I've never been even in contention. I've always been like fingers crossed for beta, fingers crossed for beta, just fingers
We'll
crossed for
see. We'll
beta.
see. We'll see if your connections beat out my connections.
Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. But yeah. Anything else you want to touch on about Windwalker season 4? Oh, actually, one more thing I want to mention about season 4 and 9.2.5. Um, the 9.2.5 patch release will not remove cutting edge and ahead of the curve
Right.
as well. That's tied to season 4. So we can get 9.2.5 like we got 9.1.5 and 9.0.5
Right.
and still, get our cutting edge and everything after that. So I do
Yeah,
actually
I think
wonder what they're going to do with Hall of Fame if the Alliance hasn't cleared it by the end of. Because they're not going to. Okay, for
by
real.
the end of the calendar year, like, I mean,
They're not going to. If we
I
get 9.2.5, honestly, at any point in June,
right.
Alliance Hall of Fame will not be full.
No way.
There are, as of like this Wednesday, there were 9 Alliance kills
Yeah,
of the Jailer, and it will start filling up more quickly. Like the rate at which it fills will go up, but
there's 12 now
there's 12 now.
in the
Yeah,
whole world. There's
yeah.
12.
So, um, what are they going to do if we get 9.2.5? We get cross faction rating,
Right,
and how does that
right. How
impact
does that
Hall of
work?
Fame?
Do you just if you have 11 alliance players and 9 horde players, do you count as an alliance guild to, to get the kill? Like that'll be very weird.
That's actually something we've got to figure out on the Warcraft log side still. Because you
Right,
can't have a cross faction guild, so for progression,
right. How does that count?
it does go, the kill goes to the team, the guild that has the majority of players.
Right.
Like you need a super majority. You need 11 players for a mythic kill. Like you
Yeah.
can't have it split 3 ways. It has to be 11 players. Um, but there's this hypothetical situation of like a cross faction guild of like 11 players are Horde on Halandris and 11 players are Alliance on Anduin. And so
Yep.
it gets assigned to different guilds.
Right. How does that work? Like, yeah, because it just is like I don't know. It's going to be a silly thing, and I don't like if there's an explosion of horde guilds transferring alliance. I don't think anybody's going to be upset.
Yeah.
Like I know there's even a cooldown before you're eligible, but at this point, guilds could sit through the cooldown and still make the Hall of Fame. Like
Yeah.
it's going to be a really silly thing. And I think it continues to kind of highlight the problems, with it and
I mean,
why it
this is
should
why
be
we're getting cross faction rating.
right. Well, right, and but right, and it really is why if they want to keep with the Hall of Fame, it needs to be region based instead of if they're hard set on it, it needs to be region based or just worldwide.
Yeah. Just a single
You
worldwide top 100 is what I think it should
Yeah,
be.
I
Just
think yeah,
worldwide
because
top
then you're
100.
done. I mean, because yeah, looking at let's see, worldwide top 100 would have been if that was the trigger for Cross Realm Mythic, right?
It would have been like
That was
week before
a month
last.
ago.
Oh, no,
It
because
was or
it,
no, a week. It was the 10th.
yeah.
100 was the 10th.
Yeah.
So Juk, I don't know. That's okay. It's a Chinese guild, so I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. But yeah. So yeah, May 10th was when the 100th kill. I mean, there's 116 now.
Yeah.
12 of them are. I mean, even in that time between there being
Well, some of those
100,
top 100 are Alliance, right? Like some of
sure.
those top
Well, right.
100 are Alliance because there's like the top 3 to 5
Right. One,
Alliance
two,
guilds are
three,
very,
four.
very good guilds. Like they're like top
Ethical honesty.
EU or Oceanic or China guilds.
Yeah. So there's four, three. Yeah. So there was 8 in the top 100 for
Yeah.
Alliance.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's okay. Right? Like, that's okay if they are going to be cross realm and,
Yeah.
or cross faction, like, the base faction becomes less important.
Yep. And that's like we're for our part, we're gonna have probably. I mean, it depends on the interest level, right? But I expect we're gonna have like an alliance guild for our guild. It's
Yeah.
just gonna be like, here's where all of our alliance alts go.
Yeah.
And so then when we do cross faction rating, we'll just pull in people from that guild.
We have allied excellence.
Well, we don't have it yet.
We don't have it yet. Okay. We
We need
will
to
have
finish
allied.
making that.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Nobody figure out what server we're on and steal that.
Yeah, it's not
No,
like
I
it's
said that
very
out
highly publicized or anything. Actually, fun
loud.
fact: the guild website still says we're on Terrellian.
People every once in a while I get like what was the one that I fixed the other day? Somebody told me and I was like, "Oh, guess I missed that. I thought I fixed it." No, it's
It's on
area
the
51.
recruitment page.
Oh.
Yeah, the recruitment page says we're on Terrellian.
Oh, you're right. All right, let me
I
fix that.
noticed that because I had to send it to somebody.
That's what yeah, because I tried. And there's just more places than I realized it
Yep.
had it listed. That's funny. All right, let me get that fixed. But
One of
yeah,
the
no, I think
fixes. Oh,
it's
sorry.
just the positive improvements that we're getting to the game,
Yeah.
and it bodes well for the future, but after Mists, we had Warlords. After Legion, we had BFA. So the future is never
Well,
set.
after BFA we had
Yeah,
Shadowlands,
I know,
so
right. So, clearly the future is not set in stone.
yes. I
Um,
mean, so I mean, we can make a list of the things that are like giving us hope for the future of WoW. And honestly, one of the ones that's near the top of my list is the fact that Ian like mentioned that there was a possibility of Master Looter. Not because Master Looter is like the end all be all or like this magic thing that's going to fix everything. It's more of like a they were
that was
incredibly stubborn and like bullheaded
right.
about personal loot, and
That was their
just
sticking
the
point.
admission that maybe we could have Master Loot and that it would address some of the problems that we've run into is like,
Uh-huh.
all right, maybe we can get there, guys.
Yeah, I think that right. If they can move past that, or whatever, maybe Master Looter becomes the way to go when you hit that super majority. Of whatever system. Any iteration on that shows that they're thinking and they're listening, and that the people that are making the managerial decisions are listening to the people you know getting the feedback and giving the feedback. um and that they're starting to understand that it's they're you can get more, you can hit those playtime metrics without focusing solely on playtime metrics.
Yes. Yeah. That's there's a truism, I don't know, adage, however you say that, that that I think is very relevant in any discussion of WoW's monetization model.
Uh-huh.
That um, when a metric becomes a goal, it ceases to become a good metric,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when playtime becomes a metric that you optimize around, it's no
Right.
longer a good metric for what it's supposed to measure
Right.
because people are
Well, and that's
doing
and
stupid things with your game.
right, and to make it, to make that even more relevant to us specifically, that is why we've never monetized Peak. That is why Peak doesn't have ads. That is why, well, some of that is that I'm not smart enough to make it have ads that work.
Ads are a pain in the ass.
But yeah, no, right. Every time I'm like, maybe I'll just try. No, that's too hard. I
Yeah.
give up.
Yep.
But yeah, like the reason that we've never done that is because the metric for the success of the website has been people going on it, people looking on it. A big part of the metric for the website for me has been less questions in Discord.
Yeah.
If I'm not seeing the same question a dozen times every day in Discord, then the Discord facts, the pins, and the website are working. But if people checking the website became my focus, or if making money off of the website became my focus,
Right.
then that would the decisions we would make to do that
Would be different.
would be very different.
Yep.
And yeah, would it be nice to be making more money off of all the work we do? Sure. But we all started doing it not for the money, so there's no reason to focus on, the money. Like,
There's
so I
also
get
there's also the thing where I don't think there's enough money in it being like a monk website for it to be self-sustaining as like even a part-time gig because
right.
of just the huge gaps in changes. Like
Yeah.
what are you going to write about 6 months from now? I mean, you're going to write about new expansion stuff, but like in
Right.
the middle of 915.
What would we be writing about right now?
Right. Right.
Like, we don't have any information. Everything would be speculative,
Yeah.
and we're not a website like Wowhead
Which I mean,
that
even Wowhead has to dip into the speculative sometimes. They
right,
just posted two like speculative "What do we think of Evoker"
right,
articles that were
but
very
that's but
content light.
right, and Wowhead is broad enough in its scope that it can do stuff like that, and that's okay, and it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
And but you're right. I mean, for a spec for a class like Monk, it just doesn't make any sense for us, and I think that's where the game, to circle back to that, that's where the game had kind of gotten away, that the metric had become the goal because, the things were focused on making money, and to make money, people need to play. So let's do things that make people play.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that they've gathered enough evidence at the corporate level to show that there are other ways to make money, without jeopardizing the quality of, your game.
I mean, I think Classic probably did the job for them because
Yeah.
Classic is not optimized for playtime,
Right.
and it is very popular and makes a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, if there was anything that was going to convince them, it would be the success of Classic, which Classic has been very successful. So we got there.
Exactly.
But that I think is going to bring us to the end of our episode. Uh, so I'm going to apologize again to the people who are listening to the audio version of this for the audio quality because I know it's going to be worse. I'm going to do what I can, but I know it's going to be worse, and I apologize. It's no longer in advance, but at least now you know not to ping me on Discord and complain about it because I already know I fucked up.
Right. We ping him because it's his birthday.
Oh my god. Um, But that is going to bring us to the end of today's episode of the Peak of Serenity podcast. If you enjoyed it and you want to support it and the other work that we do over on the Peak of Serenity, you could do that at our Patreon at patreon.com/Peak of Serenity. And of course, come and join the Discord. It is a great place to hang out and ask questions and learn more about the spec and the game and to complain about F1 rulings because that is almost certainly what is going on at Brew Lounge right now.
That's Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get into that.
If if I had the ability to rename channels, it would be F1 Lounge. But um, that's all for the show today. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.